Okay, thanks, David. So basically, I think most of the people on this call, but not everybody, probably know of me or have spoken to me or has interacted with me at some point in the past, at varying levels. But for those who don't know me, my name is Howard Locke. I am a senior business analyst. I have been working in the IT change and transformation space for around 26 years now, since 1999. So fair amount of baggage a lot along that journey. I met David just over a year ago, no, November 2024, and he started to introduce to me BVMF. He introduced model by model. I was very intrigued as a BA. I'd never really seen anything quite like it before. And one of the first questions I said to David is, why is this not commercialized, or why is it not out there? And David pretty much said, well, I've been developing this for the last 25 years. I've been using it in my day job with some great successes. And he's never really sort of got round to commercializing it. So I said, well, I think that the time is now. And we started the journey of commercialization really in April last year. So we did a VIP launch. We had 24 people in the room, including Andre, who's on this call now. And in that room, we had 550 years worth of industry experience, so quite a lot. We had business analysts, project managers, change professionals, program managers, etc. So we had a lot of fair amount of sort of varied firepower in IT change and transformation, and the feedback was very positive. You know, we knew it was a bit experimental at the time in April. We then did a bit of a recall with the VIPs, that we call them, in October, and replayed stuff. We refined, and then November last year we did our first official sort of commercialized paid course in November in Stevenage in Hertfordshire, and our next one is in my hometown of Peterborough in Cambridgeshire on the 21st and 22nd of March this year. So yeah, I've probably waffled on long enough now, but for those who didn't know me, that's the background, and I'd like to now hand over to David.
Thank you very much, Howard. Yes, welcome everybody. I see 26 people on. That's absolutely fabulous. Very glad to see you. Thank you, Howard. Howard and I are 50/50 partners in BVMF Limited, just in case you're wondering. There's a bit of admin blurb, but I'm going to forget about that for the time being and talk to you about this. In the 19th century, late 19th, could you go on mute, please, folks? If you want to ask a question, would you mind putting it in the chat? And we'll be very delighted to get you off mute, but it saves get other people getting background noise. Please keep your cameras on if you'd like to. This probably will end up on YouTube, so be aware. We're recording it, and we hope you'll put your cameras on, but you don't need to. In the 19th century, vacuum cleaners were invented, and they worked in various different ways. And as we got into the early 20th century, this kind of settled down to the old brown paper bag inside thing. If you're as old as me, you probably remember these. And in fact, that was the way all vacuum cleaners worked until about, well, the 1970s or so. Along comes Mr. James Dyson, now Sir James Dyson, has a look at this and goes, this is ridiculous. Half the suction is just going out the window. It's disappearing. You know, the whole approach is completely wrong. And as most of you will know, he came up with this cyclonic. Can you see my fingers? That cyclonic way of working, which is a completely different principle, really. And instead of 50% of the suction disappearing, no suction was disappearing. This was a quantum leap. This was in the late 70s, early 80s. And as you well know, he worked away, had a lot of ups and downs, as all inventors do. By 93, his first DC01 cyclonic cleaner came out. He absolutely changed the whole blooming paradigm. And this is very similar to what we are doing here. And when I say we, I don't just mean me and Howard, I mean me and Howard and all you guys out there, the people who come on our courses, and these prelims, which we're having almost every week now, which are also a forum on IT business value maximisation. For the last 40 to 50 years, a similar kind of timescale, if you like, to what happened with Sir James and the vacuum cleaner industry, a vast amount of potential value has been disappearing out the window with a lot of projects before they've even started. 50% of vacuum cleaner suction was disappearing. We'll show you a few numbers tonight to show you how this industry has not been that dissimilar. And when you come on our 2-day course, as we hope you will get a lot of metrics, which will refine that number even more so. I've already asked you or suggested you might like to keep your cameras on. Yes, this is a forum. A little bit of background before we move on. In 2024, I met Mr. Howard Locke here, and this is really when BVMF, Business Value Maximisation Framework, started getting commercialised. I had my first article in this vein published in the summer of 1995. So that gives you some idea of how much refinement and work this approach has had. It was not knocked up on the back of a fag packet last week, last month, last year, not even last decade. It has its roots in the 80s and 90s when I came into the industry, and I thought, boy, there's something missing here, guys. You know, there's a piece of the jigsaw missing. We're going to show you some of that missing piece of jigsaw very shortly. So this is also, yes, in September 2024, just before I met Howard, I started appearing at various public sector events like DigiGov in London, and I kicked off what I call my 70% fail to 75% succeed initiative. These prelims, this forum is part of that initiative. We together, everybody, I can see 27 of us and others, we're going to get this 75% failure in the IT industry down. Yes, we are. It's happening. Here we go. If I can get my slides working. I always seem to have to do a few clicks to get them working. There we go. So I hope you can see this slide fairly clearly, because mine is slightly obscured by some of the Zoom blocky stuff. So what is BVMF? What is Business Value Maximisation Framework? The fundamental principles for maximising value, success and ROI from IT-enabled business process. You know the kind of projects and related work I'm talking about. The fundamental principles, which I thought in the 90s, when I started doing this, were not clearly defined and available. And I still think that, except that we've got them. As well as a framework, let's start understanding this. This is a multifaceted skill set. It's a way of working and thinking, a mindset, a way of approaching the whole paradigm. And of course, it is documented because Howard and I are documenting it. And if you come on our courses, you will get a good wodge of documentation to help you. And you will, by the way, get these slides from tonight from Howard in a few days' time. This is a whole different way of working, guys. In other words, value drives everything else. It doesn't come along later, like we'll write all this software and we'll run this project and we'll use prints and blah, blah, blah. And if we do it all properly, we're going to get lots of lovely value. Oh, no, you're not. And you have been there, right? This is working the other way round. These fundamental principles are detailed and comprehensive. They're macro, micro, connective. What does that mean? It means the big picture connects all the way across to the detail. I have seen some fairly decent bits and pieces around and people doing good stuff. Of course, there is, but it is invariably working at macro level and hoping that at the end of all the detail at the micro level, some value is going to come out. And usually it doesn't, because the big picture is not connected to the detail. Our 2-day course will show you how those two connect in some detail. And you will see a comprehensive set of layers or stepping stones, as we call them. We use lots of different analogies to try and explain to you how this is working. Layer cakes, football, what else? Stepping stones across a river. So we have no gaps to jeopardize the manifestation of value. Most value that disappears in this industry is falling down between cracks. Yes, it is. And it does not happen if you are working with us in a BVMF kind of way. BVMF was developed specifically for value maximization of IT-enabled business process. So in other words, using IT in a business or organizational context, and particularly when it comes to like front end and back end processes, which is where I've always seemed to have specialized, because before I came into IT, I had a business management, marketing information background. So that's how I always saw it. However, an interesting point is a big wodge of BVMF. It's a big range, I know, but you can see 50 to 90% is our estimate at the moment, will work for IT projects in a non-business organizational context, medicine, science, transportation, all that kind of thing. Yes, it will. And even for projects that have no significant IT, which might be construction or whatever. Of course, there's IT in almost everything these days, but you know, the projects I'm talking about here, probably half of BVMF can work there, because I have been looking at the market very, very carefully every day for a very, very long time. And I personally have not become aware of any other methodologies, frameworks, approaches, blah, that go into the depth of understanding what value is, how you get it, how you chop it up, how you glue it back together, etc. If you come on our 2-day course, these are topics that we will cover. I'm not going to go into this deeply now because I want to try and get to the questions and answers. By the way, did one of us say, please put your questions in the chat if you think of anything, and we'll either deal with them as we go through, which is fine, or at the end, we'll have a big Q&A at the end. Although you might have seen this session was going to last 40 minutes, actually, it'll probably last about an hour or so. So the problem, the solution, how BVMF's models and techniques differ, the structure and extent of BVMF. This is what you would expect to see. And you see right in the middle there, we're talking about a value cake. This is a way that we get over to you. If we were baking a cake, what are the ingredients of the cake, right? Say value, you know, value, maximum value in an IT project is like a cake. You'd want to know what are the ingredients, and then you'd want to know what are the recipe steps I need to mix and cook that cake. To my way of thinking, in business IT projects, the equivalent of that was never really available. So it did not surprise me that all this value is disappearing in the same way that it did not surprise Sir James Dyson that half the suction was disappearing from a vacuum cleaner. This is what we also show you on the course. We talk about the role of the business value maximisation specialist. We think this is a missing role, and we'll show you a bit more about this very soon. How do you apply and use BVMF? As a business value maximisation specialist, a BVMS, you will be using BVMF. Believe me, it does all fit together very well. And where do you get more information? Yeah. Right. Getting a little bit more specific we do these at the weekend, and on Saturday, this is the very approximate running order. We give you good wodge of history and background, a lot more detail than we're able to do tonight in this short hour. We then start looking at the challenges. If we're going to get more value and success, what are the hurdles that we need to overcome? And believe me, there's quite a lot of those. There's a lot of gotchas and catch-22s. We carry that on in the afternoon. We have a very nice lunch. And I must say that the course we're doing in March, our next course, which is at the Marriott in Peterborough, it's a blooming nice hotel. I would classify it as a 4.5 star, although I think officially they call themselves 4-star. But I've stayed there. They've got a swimming pool. I'm not saying this just to try and get you on the course, but maybe I am. And I think the food there, well, I don't think, because I did eat there, is really nice. So I'm expecting good things, Howard, of the lunch we're having on this next course. In the afternoon, hopefully you'll still be awake because you didn't eat too much food at lunchtime. How do we get more value? How do we apply BVMF? How, getting down to specifics, how do we design it in? On the Sunday, we carry on with designing in value and making sure it keeps on happening and topping itself. We want more value, and then we want more, and we want more. Why? Because have you noticed on these projects how whatever value is conceived, say, in the business case, in the PID, at the beginning of the project, how when you get to the end of the project, 99 times out of 100, you've got less value than you started with, not more. It's like electricity along a wire or a radio signal. You need to keep on boosting it all the time, all the way through, every day, to counteract what I call the value dissipation effect. And if you do that, you can end up with more value than you thought at the end. Oh, yes, you can. It's not possible to specify everything you're going to get at the beginning in your business case, because some value is predictable and there's a component of value that's very hard to predict. Believe it or not, you better believe it, BVMF helps you to get that less predictable value as well. Later on in the morning, business practice and contingency shows you how to make sure that value happens at runtime in the operational context. After lunch, we tell you a bit more about what's different about, that should probably say BVMF there, I'm not sure. The role of the BVMS. And finally, we do a practical exercise on Sunday afternoon, a great time for doing a practical exercise when you get a chance to put what you've learned into practice, and then we wrap up. Now, today, Howard and I are trying to give you a good flavour of this level 2 2-day weekend core course. And here you can see how that fits in to the 5 levels. Do you like to say a few words about this, Howard? The 5 different levels?
Yeah, so just a bit of background. So we started doing the level 2, which is a 2-day course. We call that the core, which is over the weekend. We started doing the 2-day because a lot of the people we were talking to were contractor consultants, didn't want to give up their day rate in the week. So we started at that level. So on the 2-day foundation core, there isn't an exam at the end of it. There is an exercise, as David just said, but you do get a certificate of attendance. But the plan is moving forward when we start going more B2B and we're doing 3-day weekday courses, that will include an exam at the end of it. And you can go straight into do level 2 at the weekend because level 2 does include level 1. So, again, the plan, we're probably going to do 1-day sessions for the fundamentals of BVMF. Again, that's going to be in the future. But at the moment, this course, or the next course, the 3 courses this year, so we've got one in March, as I said, Peterborough, one in June in Leeds, and then one in October. That's going to be in High Wycombe in Buckinghamshire. So these are level 2, but as I said, level 1 is rolled into that.
Thanks, Howard. One thing I didn't say, ladies and gentlemen, is on these prelims, we're rather rude. We don't sort of take a minute for everybody to introduce themselves. So please do that on the chat. That's just because we're very tight on time and I really need to get a move on. So that's what the courses look like. Yeah, we're trying to present to you the level 2 today. That's interesting. My slides seem to have stopped working. There we go. Oh, and this is just how it looks on the website, bvmf.info. So that's the same information. Now, when you come on the course, what are we all trying to do? What are we trying to do? To help you to raise whatever level of capability you currently have for maximizing value, success, and ROI, because you might be extremely good at it already. Fantastic if you are from IT-enabled process by a big amount, not just a little, a big amount, because a lot of projects fail. We're going to have a look at this in a moment. And I've put a note down there at the bottom. The amount of improvement that people who come on our courses generally experience ranges somewhere from significant to dramatic. We are in the process of getting actual numbers and metrics on this. So, but just take those words for the time being. We just want to give you an idea. You don't get a titchy little bit of value. Obviously, every project is completely different, but we cover all that. So that you can take this improved capability back to your organization or client and work with them to do the same, because the business value maximization specialist using BVMF works with everybody. We'll show you some pictures in a minute. It's very different to all these other slightly siloed roles of project manager, business analyst, CIO, tech department, developers, blah, blah, blah. They're not connecting up around value. This helps you to do it. Here we go. 3/4 of projects and digital transformations have failed partially or completely over the last 40 plus years to meet expectations. And that statistic has not changed in 40 plus years. Back to what I was saying earlier about Sir James Dyson, this is changing now. We are changing it. That 75 is going to come down in the next few years. Yes, it is, because we are all going to start to do that. Now, you might say, that's interesting. So is expectation meeting part of the problem and part of the 75% failure? Abso-blooming-lutely. Yes, it is. And when you become a business value maximization specialist, you will learn, you might be able to do this already, how to help the whole team and the business and the organization, everybody involved, come together around a set of expectations which are aligned. Because at the moment, boy, do they get misaligned. Can you see my fingers?
Yeah.
And by the way, I have a day job still, and I like it. And in my day job, after, more than 40 years of working in this industry, every day, I see this expectation mismatch still every single day. I see it, and it's a big part. I can't put a number on it, but if you want some sort of stab in the dark, it's big, okay? Of that 75% problem, a big piece of that problem is expectation mismatch. It really is, 20-30% of that 75%. We are working up metrics all the time. We've got surveys going on. We're getting the numbers. The projects that don't fail struggle to show measurable benefit. You'll learn how to know what net benefit value is, how to measure it in lots of different ways. Yes, you will. Now, here are some pictures. This is what I was talking about earlier. You see this jigsaw on the left? This is roughly what we've been having. Business analysis and all these different disciplines all going on. They don't quite join up around value, success, and ROI, macro, micro, connective, where the big picture conception is supported by the inaction and all the stuff that goes on to realize that big picture. It's not joined up. Well, it is with us. That's why you've got that picture where you can see BVMF supplying the missing pieces of the jigsaw. And look on the right, it's just another way to look at it. If you've got a block, you're building a block of flats, the one on the left, without these value foundations, that's what you're going to get. Bit like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, could fall over, usually does. On the right, nice and solid. Value and success coming out of that top. Why? Because you've got value maximization framework and foundations, the 2 F's at the bottom. Going a bit further, this is how the business value maximization specialist works. Do you see it's a little bit different? The BVMS will have 2 things going for them. And this has come out of my career and experience. One is the BVMS has got all the value structures from BVMF, which we will provide for you. Secondly, this person, it could be persons, will be quite multi-skilled, polymathic in this space. So they will either have been a BA or a PM or any of these, or know enough about what goes on in those roles to be able to work with all those people. The skill overlaps. Yes, it does. But the BVMS is the one that coheres everybody around value with the BVMF structures, models, concepts, and techniques, and a bit of inspiration and uplifting, inspiring inspiration that we are all going to have success, morale, and all this stuff, rather than being, oh, blimey, this project's a bit on the rocks, isn't it? Nah, I've had enough of that. Thank you very much. Howard, would you like to speak a bit? Because you actually drew this diagram up in the first instance, and it's a jolly good diagram.
Yeah, I did actually. I thought when we were discussing it, I thought to bring it to life to understand how the business value maximisation specialist works and how it fits in. A question I get asked fairly often is, do I see the business value maximisation specialist as a standalone role or a complementary role? So my personal view is that to start with, when you train in BVMS, because it allows you to think about value as well as the normal stuff you do. So as BAs, I know not everybody on this call is a BA, but as BAs, we think about requirements, functional, non-functional, process, gap analysis, problem solving and things like that. But we don't necessarily think about the value, right? So because value might not just be monetary, it could be success, it could be morale, it could be, like customer success. So it's not just about monetary. But I believe this is going to be an overlay role to start with. So I think that if you're already a business analyst and you train to be, or you come on the course and do BVMF and understand where value comes from, I think to start with, it'll probably be an overlay role. So you'll do your standard BA stuff, same as a project manager, same as a change professional. You'll do your day job, but you'll also be thinking about value a bit more. And on the left there, it does say that if everybody is responsible for creation of value, nobody usually does it. So I think to start with, it'll be an overlay role. But then I do believe in the future it could morph into a complete standalone role. So you'd have business analysts on projects, but you probably have business value specialists as well, actually thinking about where the value is going to come from. I even said, to go one step further, C-suite has been expanding over the years. So 10, 15 years ago, we didn't have chief data officers, we didn't have chief security officers. So I believe, and there's actually some stuff on LinkedIn, ironically, that I saw yesterday, that there's going to be a new role called chief value officer. Now, I coined that about last June, and then I've seen a little bit of stuff going on actually on LinkedIn about Chief Value Officer, which sort of surprised me yesterday. But I believe that Chief Value Officer role would sit between sort of project, program, and change management, and obviously the CFO. So I believe they've become the gatekeeper for value, right? So when you've got projects in the PMO space and you're trying to work out which projects you should do, using BMF models and techniques, you can actually say, well, if we do this project, you're most likely to get some net value or net benefit out of it. So I believe that's a future new role. Now, whether that comes true or not, I don't know. But as I said, I saw only yesterday, I can share the link to somebody else is thinking about this as a potential new role or an overlay role from a procurement manager. So the lens is slightly different, buying stuff versus actually baking in and embedding value into, IT project change management, etc. But yeah, so to start with, overlay role, future, probably a standalone role. So that's how I see it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to rattle through because I want to get to some questions. Have we had any questions in the chat at all yet, Howard?
Not yet, apart from will we share the slides after this? Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. We have got one from Andre, actually. Okay, so how do you think BVMF relates or compares to business benefits management as described by the BCS? Okay, David, I'm going to let you answer this one. So what is the difference between benefits management and,
okay.
I mean, I've got a view of it, but I'll let you answer first. Benefits management and BVMF.
I'm going to give a quick answer to that, and we can do more in the Q&A session at the end. Thanks, Howard. This is way, way, way more powerful, okay? At the moment, the benefits manager is kind of look at this diagram, right? Is it a good thing to have a benefits manager? Blooming well is, absolutely. But we are talking about a project role, which is a lot more powerful. For example, the benefits manager might be putting some numbers together. That's good. How much can the benefits manager get involved if the value's not coming through in assessing if it's coming through or not all the way through the project, not wait until the end? And how much leverage can the Ben's manager do to hike that value up big time along the way? Well, if they've had BVMF training, they will be able to do it. So a benefits manager is absolutely, one of the key people who might well graduate into being a BVMS, as is a business analyst, as is a project manager. Absolutely. I'll say a bit more about that later because we do get asked that question. If you come on the course, you will walk out of there being in no doubt what I'm saying. This is way more powerful than benefits management. Benefits management, is it good? Absolutely. Tends to be done at macro level, doesn't tend to be macro, micro connective, and some other things. What I also want to do before I just go to the next slide is say, we are very privileged tonight to have one or two people who have been on our 2-day course. So when I get to the end of these slides, which will be quite soon, ladies and gentlemen who have not been on one of our courses, you are very welcome to ask a question which Howard, me, or one of the people who've been on our courses might be kind enough to answer. Let's keep rolling. My
Yeah,
slide.
David, just so you know, we have got four new questions.
Yeah.
I think we're going to park those, if that's
Yeah.
okay. So we've got one from
Sure.
Sean, one from Darren and Lee,
Yeah.
one from Ian,
Okay,
and
great.
one from Matt. So if you
Yeah.
don't mind, guys, we will come back to those questions after David's gone through the next few
Oh,
slides, if
yes,
that's
we
okay.
will. We certainly will. Thanks for them. Now, okay, is BVMF little, medium, or big? What do you think? See these numbers? It's quite difficult for us to give you an exact number because it's big and it's getting bigger all the time. It's not the size that matters, right? You've heard that phrase before, but let's not go there. We have about 100 models. Yes, we do. Some of the models have versions and variants. We've got about 100 models. It's not 10 and it's not 1,000. It's about that number. And we have about 500 concept principles, guidelines, and techniques. Remember, these have been worked on over 3 decades. So there's quite a few. And yeah, it's not the fact that there are a lot. It's like a toolbox, if you like. You don't use all of BVMF. You can use one model and a couple of these techniques and get a huge improvement in your project value. Yes, you can. We'll come on to that in a minute. Of course, yeah, down there we're adapting and all the time, obviously. And yeah, this has been worked on for more than a quarter of a century. How long was Sir James Dyson working on his vacuum cleaner? Quite a while. If you read his autobiography, which I have done, like all inventors, he met with a lot of skepticism, a lot of resistance, and a lot of other stuff, which wasn't very nice and polite. And I can tell you, if you invent something and it really is something good, you will get a lot of skepticism. You will get a lot of very impolite stuff said. Be warned. If you do get a lot of very impolite stuff said, it means you've got something well worth staying with. Let's keep going. Here you go. What did I just say? Don't worry about these big numbers because you can use as much or as little of this framework as you like, as long as you use the right bits. And if you come on the course, you'll learn which bits to use. How we doing? Right. What are models? Well, they describe the problem or challenge because you've got to understand the problem before you can start fixing it. They're usually graphical. They're normally pictures. I'm going to show you a model in a minute. And the concepts, principles, guidelines, and techniques generally are textual, and they are exactly this: concepts, principles, guidelines, and techniques. There are actually also mantras, misdemeanors, definitions, all that kind of stuff. There's loads of that. And that's, I don't know whether that's what you would expect. I'm going to keep rolling. Yeah, what I alluded to this earlier. We will show you how to go from one riverbank across that torrential river to the other bank nice and safely and successfully by going across that river in stepping stones or layers of a layer cake. Yes, we will. What's BVMF not? It's not a delivery methodology, okay? It's not trying to be. It's trying to supply the missing jigsaw pieces, that jigsaw you saw before. Or if you think about it as a chain, there are links missing. We supply the missing links. And with the jigsaw pieces, there are also not only pieces that are missing in relation to value and success, there are pieces that don't fit very well. Those pieces will fit better, and you will end up with a nice jigsaw, a nice picture of a castle or whatever the heck it is, the jigsaw you're doing, instead of what's happening at the moment. Well, a lot of projects are failing, so you're not even getting a complete picture, let alone a nice picture. BVMF is not paint by numbers. It's not join the dots. It's grown-up thinking. If you want some of these join the dots approaches that you do get in this industry and others, pop down to Smith's or TG Jones, as it's now called, and buy one of those little mags that's got those join the dots, paint by numbers in that they generally that kids buy. I'm being a bit scathing here, but guys, this is the time for this industry to using the old grey matter, and this is quite grown up stuff. Although we do have a lot of fun, don't we, Howard? I can assure you our courses are as much fun as any other course, probably, if truth be told, a lot more fun, actually. So, and we're not in reinventing the wheel. Yeah, if you want to use Prince, you use Prince. If you want to use whatever the heck it is, Scrum, Safe, and all these other things that on their own are not doing it, you're not getting the level of success and value. You're not having business people go, blooming heck, that was marvelous. Sadly, most of the time, business and organisations going, oh, our IT's rubbish. What's the matter with these IT people? We work for both sides. We work for everybody. We get everybody happy. Yes, we do, because we're all working to a common goal and we are all enjoying the fruits of working to that common goal. Here are some questions you'll get answered on the course. Probably won't surprise you, I hope. What is value? Yes, we answer that. How does it arise? This is the thing that most bemuses me about this industry, that it's all clattering away and, oh, is it C++? Is it Java? Is it Scrum? Is it this? Well, it may or may not be, but how does value actually arise? We will show you that. We will tell you this story. Where's it going to come from? How much value is there to be had? Blah, de, blah, de, blah. What are the cake's ingredients? What are the recipe steps? These are the questions you would expect to see answered. These are not the only questions you get answered. You will see 15 core models on the course. These are the models of the 100 we were talking about before that are the kind of big boys and girls models that get you off to a really strong start. And you will probably see some words here you recognize, but you will see some names, a lot of stuff you do not recognize. There's a good reason for that, because a lot of terms in this industry are not appropriate to our way of thinking, certainly not to align to getting value. And there's a list of those model names, just so you can see them. I'm not going to go through these tonight. I'm not going to explain all of these, but these models you will get explained to you and how they work and what they show you on the course. You will also get quite a lot of other subsidiary models. So it's not only these 15, but these are like the main ones that you will see. Here's one of the 100 models, and you will see this. I picked this one because it's one of the early models and it's quite significant. Let's have a quick look. Let's have a quick look. At the top, we're working from bottom to top. At the top, we've got value, success, and ROI. Lots of lovely value and success. Some people have called value, success, and ROI the holy grail of IT, of business IT. And I can tell you that I'm not the only one on this call who has used that term. It is. Well, it's not going to be the holy grail anymore because we're going to be getting it. So it won't be like a big pie in the sky. But that's what happens when we take this approach. Now, look, that is delivered by a thing that most of you will call the business process, right? I call it an organizational activity path because I don't like a lot of terms that get used, very hackneyed terms in this industry, like business process requirements, I don't rename things just to trip. Sorry, we can edit that bit out, can't we? Just to trip people up. I rename things because I want them to be indicative of what they actually are. The point here is value is delivered by the process. That is people, human beings doing stuff and doing stuff using IT functionality. Okay. So IT does not directly deliver value, as you might get the impression from talking to people in this industry. It's part of the equation. Oh, yes, it is. But it doesn't directly deliver the value. Now, we will tell you a load more about this relationship on the course, break it down and allow you to understand, well, what does this mean I've got to do with my process, my IT, my blah, blah, blah. You will learn all that. And these distinctions are very important. Here is a page which I'm not going to go through. You will get these slides next week. And if you click these links, you will get to see a lot more about BVMF. There are 6 articles at Open Access Government written by me. There's a podcast on Spotify. There are now 9 videos on my Maxval Consultancy YouTube channel. There will be a specific BVMF limited channel soon. The two overlap because my company is Maxval Consultancy. It has developed and owns the intellectual property to BVMF, and Maxval Consultancy has given a full exclusive license to BVMF Limited, of which I also happen to be a director with Howard. Oh, yes, that works very well. Here, also, ladies and gentlemen, I did 4 webinars for the IIBA, and those recordings are all available, and you can get a lot more information. If you've got questions and you look at all this material, a lot of those questions will get answered. That doesn't mean to say we won't be very happy to answer questions. One important point, I've kind of said this, but I do want to make this very, very clear. BVMF completes, augments, and enhances existing roles, methods, and practices. It does not try to replace them. It does not try to invent the wheel. It is supplying what has been missing. It is like a bit like the glue that glues all the bits of a broken vase together, if you like, but it's more than that, because it's also supplying some bits of the vase that were never there in the first place. Here are 2 sets of quotations from 2 people who came on our course back in November. And so this is not me saying it. This is not Howard saying it. This is what these ladies said. An exceptional framework and collection of techniques. I like linking the BVMF value. You can read that on the right. The concentration on value is unique. Yes, it is. Thank you, Sharon. Very nice quotes. Bilkis was a very, very intelligent and pleasant person, and we were very, very glad to have her on the course. I think what happened is at lunchtime, she had a few too many drinks and for some reason said, oh, David was amazing. So, but I don't know how that got out there, and I'm not sure it's actually true. But this initiative we are all now on is amazing, and it's going to be amazing. A practitioner comment. This was somebody I trained in BVMF not way back in 2021 and 2022, a principal business analyst. She was in a very large corporation, and you know what it's like with perm roles. Very lovely, very, very bright woman, and the corporation wasn't doing much with her. So I was mentoring her and helping her, genuinely mentoring her and coaching her under the IIBA scheme. And I said, would you like to learn some BVMF? She said, yes, please. So we did BVMF and got her trained up. And we also, alongside that, managed to get her moved out of there and into a smaller company where she was a much bigger cog in a smaller machine. Her career has rocketed. And she said that about BVMF. extreme common sense. It blooming well is. She wished she'd known about it years ago. Well, I wished you'd known about it years ago, but fortunately, we've got Howard on the case now, and we're rolling, guys. That's our little catchphrase, one of our many. It's not magic, it's logic at the moment, down at the bottom. Now, here's a client comment. So, what is your business or client going to be saying if you get yourself trained in this and get good at it? This was said to me some years ago. Thank you very much, this kind gentleman. Don't know anybody who translates between business and IT as well as you. Thank you. I can teach anybody else how to do that. Depends how mature you are in your career, but any age you can learn to do this. You got us more value than we thought possible. Yeah, that's BVMF working. That's what happens when you put this all together. There we go. That is the end of the presentation. Would people like to fire some questions? What's the time? Let's check. That's not bad. 18:26. I'm happy to keep rolling for a little while and do some questions.
So, David, yes, several questions came in. Sean, your question, what is the success rate for those who have attended the training course in the past? Can this be quantified? It's a shame because Andre, who was on the course, who's been on the course, has just had to leave. So it's a real shame because he would have been able to give you some examples. Now, he did join one of these sessions, I think week before last. But he was saying what the difference is now that he's trained as a BVMS, he does think about value a lot more. So he just gets on with his day job, but he also thinks about value a lot. So it is a shame that Andre has actually left because he's probably the best person placed to answer that. Darren and Lee. So Darren, this might be from you. So you mentioned.
I'll just respond to that question.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, this material, a lot of it will seem new to people, and therefore I suggest to people they do not try to understand it all. I remember as I came up through this industry over many years, there were many times when I was sitting in rooms thinking to myself, I don't understand what's going on here. Is it me? You know, do not worry. You need to digest this. It seeps into your consciousness. And after the course, you will be different in a small way, and you will find yourself thinking differently, speaking differently, dealing with people differently, because in your head, you will have a picture from our models and techniques of where the value is between you and the project manager or the development manager or, you know, all these people. And it builds and it builds and it builds. We will arrange for any of you to talk to people who've been on the course. We can do that, can't we, Howard?
We can, yeah.
We haven't had anyone on the course yet who's asked for their money back. We haven't had anyone on a course who's not been very positive or let this settle in and I'll get back to you. That's all I can say. We need to back ourselves. Howard.
Thanks, David. Yeah, so next one. So this is from Darren and Lee. So I'll read all of it whilst you think about it. So Darren said it's not convinced it's a role. A role would need to be an extra financial overhead. Sounds more like a framework that some existing roles could be trained in, and given Howard's description, might be best sit in a mature PMO. So yeah, Darren, I think you're right. I mean, when I say is an individual role, I think it is an overlay to start with, and I think there's a lot of roles in our industry where you could benefit by being trained in this. A BA is definitely one. somebody in PMO and project space, absolutely. People in change and transformation, absolutely. And project and delivery people, absolutely. I also think that, the vested interest at C-suite level they'd have to buy into it. I mean, I do say there's two things you're probably never going to hear in a boardroom. One of them is we would like our systems to be less secure. That's probably something you're going to hear in a boardroom. And the other one is we want less value, success, and ROI from our projects and programs. So that's me personally saying that. But you're right,
Right.
Dan. I think that the PMO space, we probably need to introduce more people in PMO. We have presented this to a head of PMO. He really liked it because he said, well, we're just about to embark on a 5-year transformation in our organization, and there's a lot of projects in the portfolio and they don't know which ones they should do and prioritize, because if it's not regulatory or end of life stuff,
So,
they want to know where the value is going to come from. So he was very interested, and we're going to have a follow-up session. So it was just an intro. So he was head of PMO and he was very interested in it.
yeah. Thank
David,
you,
any
Howard.
thoughts?
And I'm just going to respond to that one. We've had this question before. Number one, I don't think it's extra overhead. Number two, do you want your project to fail or do you want it to succeed? Number three, investing. You put 10 quid in, you get 90 quid out. So, um, it's not there are so many ways for BVMF to be used. I've got a diagram brewing in my head, yet another diagram where if you think about a pyramid, BVMF is at the top, and then all the other stuff, Prince, Scrum, Six Six, blah 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 blah, is here, and BVMF is guiding all those other disciplines to be much better. So, yeah, Howard.
Okay, next one, I believe. So user, I think that's Ian Kendrick. So how marketable is this as a skill when needing a new role? I can see enhancing a reputation. Basically, I think what Ian's saying is, how marketable is this skill? Well, from my point of view, I don't really like going back to agile, but 25 years ago when agile didn't exist, everybody did waterfall projects and that was it, right? Agile was introduced as a methodology. It's iterative. We all know what that is on here, so I won't teach people to suck eggs. But to start with, people would have gone, well, you can't do stuff in 2 week sprints and things like that. So the buy-in would have been very, very varied back then. And I see BVMF similar to that. Some people go, oh, I love it, I get it straight away. Some people go, oh, I can't really see any value in it, pardon the pun. And you're going to have a mixed bag. I mean, I know large organizations that are only just implementing agile, right? So this is a long journey, right? This is not going to just happen overnight. But I do think that a bit like, oh, you need to be you need to have agile on your CV, or you need to have done an agile project, or you need to have used safe, or Lean Six Sigma.
Yeah,
So these skill sets and things that are out there
yeah,
already,
good.
sometimes
Uh,
recruiters will say you need
uh,
that, or BCS or IBA or ITIL. So we
sure.
see it as another one of those. We want somebody who's a value specialist, and again, slow burner, won't happen overnight. But people,
Howard,
yes, sorry.
do you mind me asking who was it who asked that question?
That was Ian Kendrick. I'm just trying to see
Is
Ian,
Ian
if Ian's
still
still
on?
on.
Is Ian still on?
I'm looking for user because he was. Let's have a look.
Is Ian still on? Because I'd like to ask him. Oh, okay. I was going to ask
Yeah,
you.
no, I think he's I think he's jumped off. Yeah,
Okay,
no, he's jumped
when he
off.
says marketable, does he mean how much dough am I going to make being a BVMS, or does he mean how much value is that going to create for everybody involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think he means not how much am I worth extra, more about, okay, if I'm a value specialist, where does that place me? Does it give me an advantage? And I do get this question actually from other people.
Well, yeah, it does
Yeah,
give you an advantage. It gives you you will be a king. You can be a kingpin. Now, this is not about ego. This is about us being able to help this industry to do the 50% suction loss cyclonic changeover, okay? And it's hard work and it's going to take time, but we are really rocking and rolling these days. Howard, are there any more questions?
There are. So it's confusing. So I've got a DM on the call, and we've got Darren Merengue, and obviously that is different. So DM, you might just need to put what your name is in the chat. So DM's put, I work in IT in financial services. Never seen anyone doing this before. Do you have real life examples of someone who's working in financial services and has done BVMF? That is a good question. There were people, there were BAs in the last course that worked in financial services, and I do speak to quite a lot of accountants, and we do have a chat about the differences. So, if you work in financial services, you are working with finance processes and things like that. Doesn't matter what it is, because the BVMF models, all of them are designed relentlessly to get optimal, maximum value and net benefit out of what you're doing. Now, because the model's all different, until you see some, you probably might not make too much sense, but the models can be used at lots of different levels, right? So, you could use it at project level, program level, you could do it at requirements level. So some of the models you go, well, okay, MVP is going to give me this, but actually, what at requirement level, which requirement's going to give me value? You can do it at that. Even David and I talk about, you could run a defect through some of the models and go, what's the net benefit and the value I'm going to get from it? So it's different. It's very different to obviously financial services. We've actually got somebody going to be coming on the March course who is a finance, somebody I placed about a year or two ago at a company called Panamore, which you will know, Darren, and he's come and joining the course. So we've had a sort of separate conversation around, even if you're an accountant, even if you're in financial services, it doesn't mean you're going to get net benefit out of
Good
it.
answer. Yeah. Can I just come in on that one? The answer to questions around BVMF is almost always yes. Occasionally it won't be, but I'm just trying to give you a feel of how this works, because I've sweated every single day since 95, when my first article was published on this. When I say sweated, it sounds like it was it wasn't. I obviously I've enjoyed doing it. I've loved it. But it's very, very, very comprehensive. For example, on what we've just been talking about, we have a business value equation that shows you how all the value cakes ingredients fit together in numeric terms and how they relate to each other. And a few months ago, I was having a good look at the actual formulae for ROI, ROCE, blah, 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 that financial people use. And I was able to map our business value equation directly to ROI. Now, we're talking about a benefits manager before, right? Here's a good example. If you get that under your belt, actually, that particular thing is not necessarily in the core 2 course, but it's probably going to come in soon. But I'm just giving you an example. ROI gives you a ratio that you can calculate, maybe a target before you run your project, and then you have a look at the end and say, oh, we got this, right? With the business value equation, which you can link to ROI, that will tell you for your target ROI what you need to do with your business process, with your IT functionality, with your IT technicality, with your costs, with your blah, with your morale, with your inspiration, blah, 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 blah. We did, on our last course in November, have a gentleman who is very quite friendly with me, to be honest, as well as coming on our course, because we worked on a project together way back in the late 90s. And that gentleman who came on our course last November was accountancy trained. And we might arrange for you to have a chat with him at some point. Right, I will stop Howard, how we doing?
Yeah. Okay. So DM, sorry, Darren Modi. I should remember because we messaged him earlier today. So yeah, Darren Modi. So interesting one. So the question is, how do I convince program to spend on BVMF, and how does it overlay with other technologies? Now, uh, um, obviously, because BVMF is a framework, okay, it's technology agnostic. I'm not sure how to answer that one to start with. I'll let David think about that. But I think I've been asked this before about overhead, David, and cost. So where, how much extra does BVMF cost if you build it into projects? So it's going to be interesting how you answer this one, but I get why people ask it, because it's a bit like, well, if I've got a project manager and a BA and a developer and a tester, and the project's going to take this long and it's going to cost this much, what's the sort of financial overhead of having a business value maximization specialist on the project?
Right, you will know how to do that. I mean, when you use words like convincing, do you want your project? Who wants the project to succeed and who wants it to fail, right? Um, the business value maximization specialist has you. Did you see the quotes that I just put up? Like Mike Call said, the purchasing manager, you can translate. We are all understanding each other so much better. This is IT's always moaning they're not getting the requirements. You will get the requirements. Business is always moaning, what's our IT department or supplier doing? Why are they so slow? They will have their expectations set by the BVMS, and more on that side and more on that side. When I get involved in these situations, I've been asked to go and fix where business and IT are going, it's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault. Right, people, please listen to me. We are all going to start working together. Here's some pictures. Here's how value arises. You will get this, you will get that. Boing, 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 boing. Ooh, this is different. What was the second bit of that question, Howard, please?
Have a look.
The first bit was
It's just the value,
convincing.
and again about the
What
technologies. So it was about how does
what's the wording of the question?
the
Can you
wording exactly was, how do I convince programs to
yeah,
spend on
and the second
BVMF,
bit.
and how does it overlay with other technologies? Well, obviously BVMF is not a technology, so I'm not.
Well, okay, we've said this several times already in the last hour. It does not replace everything else. It makes everything else better. It means everything else will be more valuable, will be more productive. Um, and oh, if that's not enough, give me a shout. I'll give you a
Yeah.
better answer. But
Okay.
one of these, you can do as many as you like. So we'll see you soon.